when I was about 16 years old, sitting on our front porch. The most beautiful car I'd ever seen pulled up in front of the house and parked. The owner went next door to our neighbor's house, and I almost fell off the porch going down to see what the car was. My first look at an Austin Healey. Ever since that time, I thought someday I would like to own an Austin Healey. Having an opportunity, I thought, come up to purchase an Austin Healey BN1 locally, that didn't pan out. But now I had the bug, so I went looking, and I got into Hemmings, started watching cars come up. And the Beverly Hills Car Club probably has the most derelict highest number of derelict Austin Healeys, or any sports car for that matter, around. And they had one posted that caught my eye. It was a right-hand drive, which is unusual in the States. It was sold in England, brought over afterwards. And it had a seized engine, and it was missing carburetors. And but the photographs in the Hemmings site website showed that it seemed to have a fairly solid frame and body panels on it. So I took a chance and I bought it and had it delivered to Wilmington. The BN1, over the years, I'd come to realize was my favorite one of the Healeys, being the original Jerry Coker design, the way he designed it. Had the quirky 3-speed transmission with synchro in first, and no exposed door handles, very clean. Fuel filler tank, fuel filler cap is hidden in the trunk. Very clean car. So, very pleased to get a hold of the car, and this is the restoration story. We are, it's October 29th, 2018, and this truck is just showing up with our new Austin Healey project on it. I didn't realize they're sending a double truck out. He's huge, so he's trying to go down the street, turn around so we can unload it in the other direction. That is one big rig. Well, he's got it turned around again, and he's now headed out with it. So he's in the right direction to get out of here. Well, she's in the garage. Finally, we had to pull it up with the chain on the back of my lawn tractor because it doesn't run. But she's here, all in one piece, mostly. It's a little more rust than I thought, but not all that bad. I've seen a lot worse. The paint has all has to come off. It's all cracked and crazed. But she seems to be mostly all here. Trunk doesn't look too bad. I got my side curtains. I got a spare tire. You can see we've got to do some work here all the way around. Oh, look at this. To close the trunk, we've got to spring it past the bumper. She's been tapped in the back. She's been tapped in the back someplace and the bumper's pushed in. Ah, okay, that's probably why she's so tight at the top of the door here. Same thing on this side. Well, the door sprung out a little on this side too. You don't see that in the photographs when you're buying it. This one's way too tight at the top. Right now the hood is stuck. I can't get that open. That'll be one of the first things we got to do. We have to get rid of this crazy thing. This is a switch for turn signals. It actually belongs here on the steering wheel. This doesn't look like the standard switch toggle for the overdrive, but if it is, we'll clean it up. If it isn't, we'll find something for it. Not sure what that is. It is right-hand drive, which is kind of fun. Left front wing looks pretty good. Splash pan in the front looks pretty good. Right front fender's got a couple of little dents in it here and there, but nothing we can't take care of. This door's got some nasty little scratches and dings. And it's starting to rust along the bottom. We'll have to take a look at that, see how much of it. I know a guy who's got 2 doors. So I might want to buy 2 doors from the looks of it. So, it's the beginning of our project. Well, with a little work, Jonathan helped me get the bonnet open. And we've discovered that somebody did some pry bar work, and that's resulted in this piece here being torn away. We get a little bit better shot of it from the other side, I think. And you can see how badly that it's been torn away there. So that's why the latch didn't want to open, because it was catching where it shouldn't be catching. So anyhow, we got that open. I have to do some repairs there. And the hardware and the hinges doesn't look quite like what I would expect from the factory. I was restoring the tractor. We run across stuff like that, and we used to kiddingly say that the tractor had been farmerized. Well, I think this car's been somewhat farmerized. The hood support here I think needs to be bent over a little more. Somehow that's gotten stretched. So we'll take care of that. Some other issues discovered that didn't show in the photographs. The steering wheel is actually broken. So I don't think that's going to be repairable. But I have to get a new steering wheel for it. Windshield folds down cool though, like it's supposed to. And we got some issues here with the boot lid. It hits on the overriders, so I'd have to say that the bumper's been pushed in. That's my guess. And the attachment points for the rod that holds the boot lid open have been buggered up. I think originally it was over here on the outside. Then somebody moved it to here, and then that got torn up, so we're going to have to do some repair work in here. And then it looks to me like somebody has moved this. That's the problem it gets into, is trying to close the hood, the trunk lid. People push too hard, and they move this point. I think it's supposed to be over here on the side of the inner fender. Here's the side curtains. So now when I bring this down, she's sitting up on the bumper overriders. Get that one out of the way. Once it gets by the overriders, the fit doesn't seem too bad on it. This is going to take some working. I don't know why the hinge is loose, but the hinge is loose. Yeah, there's a screw here. Yeah, we got a lot of work to do to save that piece, but I think we'll get that done. Well, while we're out here, you get a little picture of the new vent they put in for a heater in my garage, and the new propane tank that fuels it. So now, in cool days like today, we can get some relief. It's not overwhelming, and you're not going to be 70 degrees in the garage, but I've had it up to 53 on a day where we're just under 30 degrees. So that helps a great deal in making it more comfortable to work in the garage here. While we're out here, we'll get some pictures of the project. Here's what the Austin Healey looks like at the moment. We've got the hood, the trunk lid, right front fender, a bunch of small parts all taken off. I just hit a sale in Harbor Freight where I bought this hoist to haul the engine out with. You can see the hook hanging down here. So that's a 2-ton hoist, and it'll be easily able to haul this engine out of here. And we're ready. There's a seat pan. Over in this box I've got the record radiator. On the ground here I've got a bunch of parts getting ready for rechrome. This panel has been hit and repaired. This is a panel that braces the door pillar. And over here we get a new panel to replace it. That's going to be welded in place of the damaged one. And the floor panels in here are messed up. This floor panel on the driver's side is just flat steel. Somebody replaced it with a sheet of flat steel. And the steering wheel is in tough shape. Somebody put a wood screw in trying to, as an attempt to fix the steering wheel. Not too successful. We're going to have to repair that. On this side, the floor pan is maybe original. It's got formed pieces in it like it should, not flat like this side. But I'm going to replace both of those, and we've got the panels for that. Where are they? Ah, here we are. There's the 2 floor panels, left and right hand side, to be welded in. And then this panel here is the trunk floor panel, because the floor to the trunk is not quite as good as it should be. I've been working on this, trying to get it to fit better than it had, and we're getting pretty close. The mechanism that holds the trunk lid up was missing, so we get all that squared away now so that we can put the trunk up in the air. And here's that floor panel that we're going to take out and replace. It's not the best shape. It's not terribly porous, but I'd rather get a new one in there that looks like it's with the proper forms in it. So it looks like it should. Whereas this one looks like it was made flat without the forms in it, not as rigid. Anyhow, that's kind of where the project stands at this point. Got all the wheels off it. She's up on jack stands here. The wire wheels. Get some of this stuff off of here. Here are the wire wheels. The factory wire wheels these are the originals, I believe. Were painted, which is correct. So we're going to clean these up and preserve them. Put new tires on them. But then as I'm feeling wealthy later on, I may get an additional set of chrome wire wheels that are a little flashier for show. Actually, when I'm showing the car in concourse, where they judge it against originality, we'll want to have the painted tires on, painted wheels on, and then driving around and showing off a little bit the flashy chrome ones would be kind of fun to have. This is my new heater that they just installed, and let's see what we got in here. It's set at 50 degrees, the thermostat, but it's actually 33 in here right now, and you can hear the fan just went on. After the fan runs for a little bit, it should fire off. Any day now. There we go. Now you can see the blue flames up in there. So now we're getting some heat, which makes it a lot nicer to work out here. I'm sure John, when he comes in after work, is going to appreciate having the garage a little warmer than it was. Well, here we are down cellar, and I've got the right front fender off the car down here. I've been working on it. The material you see wiped on the inside is what's known as Bondo, and basically the inside I'm using the Bondo to cover where there was some pitting. So we're going to be sanding that out so that there's no low spots in the pitting, and when we paint over that, the rusted pit marks will disappear. The fender was damaged. It's been repaired from rust. This line across here is where they put a new piece of metal on from down here down to replace the rusted area. But after that, it was evidently hit because it was crumpled and dented, and took quite a while with a hammer and dollies to smooth that all out, get the shape right again. But it's worth saving and putting some money into, some time and effort into rather, because it's you can get one, but they're like $1,200 for a fender, so it's worth a few hours of sanding and hammering to save it. So that's one of the pieces. Over here we've got the exhaust manifold. It's been cleaned up and painted. This is not an original. This is one I got on eBay because, believe it or not, somebody broke this ear off of the one that's on the car. I don't know how you break a casting that big, but they did. And then over here, we got a pair of carburetors which were missing off the car. I bought these on eBay. They weren't as nice a shape as I thought they were. I had to replace quite a few parts and pieces in them, but we got a working set of carburetors now and air filters. The air filters were missing, these pieces here, and they're they're a little pricey. I had to pay $65 a piece, so we got $130 worth of air filters sitting there. All told, with the rebuild, the carburetors and the rebuild and all the parts and pieces that went in it, probably about $1,000 sitting here, which sounds like a lot of money until you know that if you bought a brand new set of carbs for it, they're $1,500. So that probably came out about $500 a head by buying a used set and rebuilding them. Back here we've got a new choke cable, new fuel lines. This is an extra set of manifold, intake manifold, because the carburetors were missing on the car, but the manifold was there. And this is actually the manifold that came off the car. This one came with the carburetors when I bought it, and it's got a little more pitting in the crossover pipe than the one that was on the car. So the one that was on the car was probably a better one to keep. Still missing the braces that go across here. I've got those out in the garage. They came with the carbs from eBay, but they're a little pitted, so that I've got primer on them, and we're working to clean up the pitting on them so that they look a little newer than they actually are. Anyhow, it's the progress on the car so far. This is the Heritage Certificate that we bought, and it gives a bit of the history of the car. You've got your make and model, your chassis number, your engine number, body number. Was made for home market, right-hand drive, exterior color carmine red, trim red, hood red. It was built September 16th, 1954. And it was shipped to W. Varney's Garage Limited, St. Helier, Jersey, Channel Islands. It's a key number FA543, which is what it came with. It had standard tires, laminated windscreen, mile-per-hour speedometer, heater, and dip left lights. And this was issued to me the 24th of October, 2018. So it's kind of a nice thing to have. We tried to find a replacement steering wheel, and were unsuccessful in finding a replica of the original steering wheel, which was badly broken, as you can see. Somebody tried to put a wood screw into to repair it, and we decided that we would try to save this one. First job we had was to get it off the car, and it was reluctant to come off the car, so I had to make a special puller for it. I had a two-bar gear puller, and I used a block of wood, and we made this piece up. This little piece here in the center fits inside the steering column, which is stepped. It only goes in about an inch, so that gives you something for your gear puller to push against in the center. And then the wood block with the two bolts that the gear puller grabs onto. Next we took a Dremel tool and started to carve away some of the plastic to see what was going on. And the ends of the steel rods that go into the rim are actually cast in. They have a casting around the bottom, and the casting is what was broken. So instead of using a casting, we welded the rods to the rim. This is beyond my welding skills, so I took this over to Martel Welding in Billerica, who did a fine job of it. This is the second of the three connection points of the steel bars to the rim. And this one was not broken, but it was cracked. So we took a Dremel tool and opened that up so that we could put repair plastic in that. Next, we built a fixture to mold the new plastic in. And the rim had one unbroken, uncracked piece on it, on the outer part of the rim. So we use that to make a mold. And this is the mold where we poured silicone molding compound into the box. And then took an X-Acto knife and trimmed it so that we wouldn't have anything covering up the rods where they meet the plastic. Next, I put in a layer of saran wrap to act as a separator so that we could pour the top half of the mold. And once we poured the top half of the mold, we cut sprue holes that we could pour plastic into and made a piece of wood that would hold that mold together so we wouldn't get any leaking as we poured in the plastic. This is the result. Now the wrinkles are from the saran wrap on the upper part of the mold. The good news is any wrinkles are actually excess material that can be carved away, and you can see the sprues that came out as where we poured it, all 3 sprues. And then finally we sanded all that down, and we actually had to go back in afterwards with a little more epoxy and give it a skim coat to get rid of this minor amount of pitting that we had there. So we used it just like a light coat of body filler to clean it up. And here it is sitting in a fixture that holds it so that we can actually do the painting on it. So it's all masked off, ready for painting at that point. The first body panels we managed to repair and get into final paint were the front fenders, and I think they came out pretty nice. That was followed by the trunk lid. Then we started to strip out the interior of the car. Strip the suspension off, the rear end and axle. Here's my son John working on the taking apart the car. Here the whole front end is off of it. The frame on this car is a little strange. It's kind of a cross between a frame and a monocoque construction. There's a lot of sheet metal that's welded to the frame. Here we built a dolly that we could move the car around on, and we took it up to Cutter's Auto Body in Tewksbury where they did the sandblasting. This is a kind of a view of their sandblasting area. And here's the car all back from sandblasting sitting on the trailer. You can see in the fresh sandblasting here the damage to the A-pillar brace, and here's the new panel replacing that. So makes a nice repair. This is the chassis, getting it ready to put up on the rotisserie. The rear of the car is on jacks, the front end's being attached to the rotisserie. Here is the car up on the rotisserie upside down, both front and back mounted. Next we sprayed the frame with Very Prime, which is a kind of a light green DuPont product that is a self-etching primer that has good rust resistance. Repairs to the floor panels, welded in new floor panels. Here's the old flat floor in the trunk, and here we are fitting the new flat floor, new floor to the trunk and to the rear cowl. Everything has to match up because the rear cowl rivets to the floor pan, so the floor pan has to fit the frame and the cowl. We had damage to the front cross member. It was rusted and dented on the bottom, so I made a patch to go over it, 16 gauge steel. We can jack the car safely on that. Here's the frame coming through the floor panel from underneath, and I made this little piece here to weld over the top of it where the bottom had rusted out. So here it is repaired, going from that to this. And same thing on the inside. I welded a piece in here to stiffen the frame. And we put in a new panel on either side of the fuel tank opening. While all that work was going on, the engine was up at R&L Engines in Dover, New Hampshire. And here's the new pistons and reconditioned connecting rods ready to go back in. Connecting rods on this thing are so long they look like they came out of a steam engine. Here's a shot of the old piston next to the new piston, and Leo at R&L tells me that this is the latest technology and better than the factory. You'll see the factory had a bottom ring and several heavy rings at the top, and the new pistons have no ring on the bottom, and the top rings are very thin, very flexible, thin rings, which, again, I'm told it's the latest and greatest, so engine seems to like it so far. Here's the engine as I got it back from R&L, ready for priming and paint. Here we've got her painted. We're starting to put the exhaust manifold and some of the other accessories back on the engine. I was particularly happy with the way the spark plug wires came out. They're not original, but they're period correct, and they're rather pretty champion plug wires. And I was able to buff out the phenolic on them and repaint the champion word in them, and I thought they really looked pretty neat. The front and back cowls on the Healey are aluminum, and aluminum doesn't always like to have the paint stick to it. So it's very important in this case to use the very prime self-etching primer to grab it, get a good hold onto the aluminum with the etching. Here it is in sanding primer, so it's already been very primed, and then all the body work has been done and blocked out, and the sanding primer is in all sanded out to get rid of any scratches, and then from there it goes into color coat, clear coat, and came out pretty nice. The rear cowl was pretty porous in places, as you can see the flange. I made a piece here to repair that corner, and being aluminum, where I don't weld aluminum, I epoxied that in with West G-Flex. Worked out very nicely. And I made a strip the height of the flange here, and we epoxied that in all the way around the back. It reinforces that section. And then I took the rear cowl over to Martel Welding again, and I had them weld in a repair piece for the missing metal there. And the same thing on the other side. Get the repair piece in there. Here's the chassis all painted in red. Healey's paint their frames to match the car color. This is a DuPont product called Nason, which is a single-stage urethane. It's mixed with a hardener, but it doesn't require a clear coat, so it's a single spraying. I didn't want to have to go clear coat, color coat, clear coat on the frame. Once the frame is painted, we can start putting things back together. The rebuilt heater with a new core in it. And we can also start putting some of the upholstery in. Start to put the front suspension back together, compressing the coil spring. Here's the assembled front wheel, and it's got shocks were rebuilt by Apple Hydraulic in New York. This is a template I made out of pieces of paper to fit around the pedals so that I could mark the openings in the carpeting, so I could cut the carpeting, get a nice fit up in it. And we got the instrument panel in. The new instruments are all back from Neisinger in New York, who did a beautiful job in rebuilding them. They had to reseal, silkscreen the faces on the instruments because they were pretty good, but they weren't, if you were going to show the car in concourse, they weren't up to par for that. The rotisserie is a wonderful thing for being able to run wiring harnesses and hydraulic and fuel lines and all that. Really makes life a lot easier at that point. Here the car is down off of the rotisserie, and we got her back on the floor jacks, and we've installed the rear end. New leaf springs. Got our new seats in place. Got some wheels on it. Put the front end steering back together and the sway bars. And here's the engine compartment getting ready for the transmission and engine to go back in. This is the side on which the brake system, this is the brake reservoir right here. And the clutch linkage is right down here. Get the new seats in place. This seat belt, I made my own Austin Healey seat belts. I bought standard seat belts from Moss, and I bought 2 of their lapel pins and drilled a hole in the seat belt and mounted the lapel pin through the hole with epoxy. The new chrome wire wheels with radials. I have a set of painted wire wheels with bias ply on it that I can use for showing the car in concourse. But for everyday driving, I prefer the chrome, and the radials are much nicer to drive on. This is my friend Jack Horner helping me to install the engine. And Jack is the president of the Bay State MGA Club, and a good guy to have on hand for a project like this. It's the transmission and overdrive. And we finally got the engine all nestled in. Installed the generator. Put in the insulation panels. We installed a stainless steel exhaust system on the car. The fuel tank you see in black sitting above the exhaust is a new aluminum tank. Here we're fitting parts before we do the actual finishing on the rear cowl. Making sure everything's going to go together. It's our spare tire. The spare tire is a painted rim with the bias ply tires on it, so if I'm showing the car with the bias ply tires on it, the spare tire will match. This is the battery compartment. The batteries are replicas of the original Lucas tar top batteries, and they're actually dry cells, gel cells that are sealed, so you never have to put any liquid into them. The front of the rear end, this piece here on the rear end, Eventually I painted that black because that's the way the factory would have done it. And also the brake lines were painted black, so those got painted black later. Then we started in on finishing up the rear cowl now that everything was fitted to it. Buffing it out here after color coat, clear coat, and then color sanding and polishing. Here it is installed on the car. Putting the rear lighting in, the license plate light in the center, and finally putting the bumperette license plate holder and everything in place. This is the refinish or refurbished trafficator from Curtis Art. Curtis specializes in these and did a beautiful job. It works well, self-cancels. Here we are for the first time, having the complete instrument panel, steering wheel, and trafficator all installed. This is a rear fender, and it had a nasty tear in it. I don't know if you can see it. It's a Y-shaped tear that I was able to, with a hammer and dolly, get it all flattened out flush again. And then to stabilize that, I bent a piece of sheet metal to follow the contour of the inside of the fender. And we've epoxied that with the West Systems G-Flex epoxy over the, repaired the tear mark. And also, if you mix a little micro balloons with the G-Flex, you can spread it like a putty, or you almost use it like a body filler in these porous areas here. And the beauty of it is it's made for marine use, so it's all waterproof. It's used on repairing fiberglass hulls. And you never, like Bondo, you don't have to worry about it being porous to water. So unlike a welded patch that you might want to put in, we now have a sealing of waterproof epoxy between the two sheet metal parts so that you never have to worry about rust starting as if it were a welded panel where you couldn't finish the inside. And here's the fender. As I was painting the base coat, there are more ways to screw up a finish. My foot kicked the sawhorse and the fender flipped upside down onto the floor and messed up this area with dirt. And I had to block sand it and bring it down to a smooth surface again. And then I sprayed it with a seal coat. And the seal coat's job is to prevent this discoloration from showing through under the red. It makes everything uniform in color underneath their base coat. And here she is with base coat and clear coat, ready to be color sanded and polished out. Here we are trimming off the door openings with new trim pieces. Using the engine hoist to hold the door in place while we put the hinges on. And the door's hung, and we got a pretty good, you can't see the seam here, but the door seam came out pretty good. Both doors at this point are hung. The whole rear end of the car is finished. Get to see the seats and upholstery. It's looking pretty nice at this point. And we start to install the front cowl. This is the wooden bow that goes across the front of the convertible top, and the ends of it were rotted off. So these pieces that you see on the ends, I spliced on to put it back to its correct length and get rid of the porosity. This is the the vinyl trim that goes over that front bow, and getting it all secured in place. This is the top installed. Looks pretty nice. This is the side curtain frame The frames were in good shape, but they were missing the trim pieces, the polished metal trim pieces. And nobody makes these for this particular. There were 3 different styles of side curtains that were used on the 100 series. And this is the middle one. They refer to it as the letterbox side curtain. And this flap opens up. The trims, as I say, are not available anyplace, so I had to fabricate them. I purchased the trim set from an MGTD, which has 4 side curtains, 2 small ones and 2 big ones. And there's enough trim material in there that you can fabricate stuff out of it, use it as raw material. So what I did is this piece, and this piece are actually the way they come in the MGTD kit. The only thing I had to do was shape this one slightly curved to the frame. But there are no parts in the kit long enough to make this piece that comes all the way down here. So that's actually made in 3 pieces. And the hardest part of it is to bend this radius. So I made this fixture with a lever on it, so you can trap the part in a groove and then pull it around with a roller and bend it. The only thing it does is it closes up the channel a little bit where the T-nuts, the T-bolts that go in, slide inside the trim fit, and I had to use a screwdriver and pry the channel open a little bit so I could slide the bolts in. But other than that, worked out pretty good. Finally, we get both front fenders installed on the car. It's funny, they were the first things that got painted and the last things that be installed on the car. Here's the engine compartment with the radiator and everything in place. The heater hose line was painted silver at the factory, along with these brace bars that go across the carburetors. And I didn't realize it at the time, but the factory also painted the copper fuel line. So since this photo was taken, that's been painted to match the heater hose finish as well. And finally, we have an automobile all put together. It's a nice view of the rear with the trunk open. Another thing that was I discovered later is this piece of fuel line that shows in the trunk was painted black at the factory, so that's been corrected. The front of the car here, I purchased these little strips that go in between the headlight and the turn signal light. And they were a light gray color. And those were incorrect. And they were black from the factory. And I've since gotten the right material and changed those over to black. This is the final project, the completed car with the windshield in the folded down position. Jerry Coker, who designed this car, was of the opinion that this car should never be photographed with the windshield in the up position. I have to agree. I think it's very pretty this way, and I hope you folks have enjoyed this video as much as I did making it. This is the final project, the completed car with the windshield in the folded down position. Jerry Coker, who designed this car, was of the opinion that this car should never be photographed with the windshield in the up position. I have to agree. I think it's very pretty this way, and I hope you folks have enjoyed this video as much as I did making it.